One, two, one, two, three.
Howdy, friends, and welcome to the Alt Country Show. I'm your host, Emily Smith, and today I'm chatting with Shlomo Franklin, an artist who absolutely needs to be on your radar. Shlomo was raised in upstate New York in an ultra-Orthodox Hasidic Jewish community. A love for music and curiosity about the outside world led him to leave the community at the age of 16. Now based in Nashville, he's just dropped a new album, perfectly titled, Most People Are Lonely. We'll talk about all of this and more on today's episode, which is guest co-hosted once again by the incomparable Nathan K. Nathan introduced me to Shlomo's music, and I'm so thankful for that. With an expressive voice that reveals both the weight of his past and the promise of his future, Shlomo Franklin crafts songs that are personal and universal. His story is one of transformation and self-discovery, and his music poignantly reflects that journey. I'm so excited to share this interview with you. I'm already ready to have him back on the show. I feel like we barely scratched the surface of this incredible artist. On top of that, I'm looking forward to having him join us for the second annual Alt Country Showcase. That is right, we're doing it again at Honey Tree Meadery on September 19th and 20th, and we'd love for you all to come join us. You'll hear some incredible music, maybe see some artists that you've heard here on the show, and you'll get to hang out with us and have a good time. If you want to keep up to date on the Alt Country Showcase and all things Alt Country Show, find us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Visit our website, altcountryshow.com, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get yours, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Spotify, and YouTube. I'd love to have you as a part of the Alt Country Club, following us along. And with that, let's get into the conversation.
No, so I'm going to ask first, how did you two meet?
We met at a show. We met at the East Room, right?
Mm-hmm. Were you both playing on the bill? Or
neither one
random?
of us, which is awesome.
Oh, okay.
And Shlomo is friends with we have a mutual friend, Jeremy Quentin, who performs Small Houses. Have you heard him before, Emily?
The name sounds familiar, but it's not.
He's like one of my oldest music friends from Michigan. And
okay.
He was running a venue out in Iowa that Shlomo and I both played at separate times. And then he came to visit us and brought us together the day after the Lions lost in the playoffs.
I remember trying to empathize with someone who just doesn't care about. I couldn't even tell you what sport the Lions play, but I remember, you guys it was heavy in the air. I was trying to.
Yeah. He and I had watched it the night before, and he was like, they were like up by a lot at halftime, and then I picked him up from the airport at halftime, and we drove to a bar, and then like watched him kind of disintegrate, and then the next night, so I was in a very emotional, fragile state, and Shlomo brought me back to life with his positive spirit. So
I will say, like, Jeremy is just such a cool dude, and he's one of the great examples of like, there's oh my God. Like, Jeremy's an archetype to me that makes doing the road, makes me addicted to keep wanting to play the road, even if you go out and play shows that stink and you bleed money, you're playing to no one, it's cold, you're in Iowa, you're in Wisconsin. But then you meet a guy like Jeremy and you have the most fun, and is just this massive music enthusiast, music lover. And yeah, man, he's in Colorado now. Gonna go out and visit him. Gonna go out and play some shows there. Yeah, just a sweet man. Very talented too. Great singer-songwriter. Doesn't promote himself at all, but
yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
so good.
Well, we know you have a pretty interesting backstory. Can you tell us a little bit about where you're from originally and your childhood and growing up?
Yeah, well, I feel like, you grow up, you think of your existence as like everyone else's, but I grew up in very, 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 very religious Hasidic Jewish Orthodox community, like ultra-Orthodox. And yeah, it was pretty wild. Like in school, we would talk Yiddish. At home, we spoke English, thank God, which is why I sound like an American, where a lot of friends I grew up with you'd be like, what, where in Europe are you from? And they'd be like, I'm from Brooklyn. But just they have very thick accents. But yeah, super religious and very, very much like an all-encompassing faith where from the minute you wake up till you go to sleep, like the religious doctrine is pretty much like how you exist, how you lead your day. But yeah, I grew up no television, no radio, very sheltered, cut off from the world. And my dad's also like a wildlife biologist and a farmer, and he never really fit into that world, but he believed in like, it somehow fit into his philosophy in life. And so I grew up in this weird dichotomy with like, I grew up on a farm, so milk cows, and then I'd go to this extreme religious school and like all boys intense religious school. But yeah, pretty sheltered from the world. Like I was lucky that I had a farm, I had tractors and cows, which allowed me to like be a little bit more exposed to the outside world. I'd meet people who weren't like of our exact Judaism, like our exact sect, which was really healthy. Like, and it was cool, like getting to meet local dairy farmers and seeing that my dad loved them and respected them. And they were cool with my dad too. And I feel like I'm so grateful for those relationships as a kid. It made me like, I think, fear the outside world less. I was still very afraid of the outside world because you grow up, insulated from everything and outside culture. And you're told that, they're very, very suspicious of any outside culture. I think they see it that it threats their existence. And in some ways, there's a lot of good points there. In some ways, it's silly and unhealthy. But yeah, I left the religion when I was 16. Like from when I was a kid, I would just push back. I really just wanted out. And I would just daydream all day about getting the hell out. And finally I did. And, it felt terrifying, but felt like salvation. And yeah, man, like I wouldn't be talking to you guys today. I wouldn't be friends with you guys if I hadn't gotten out. I wouldn't be playing guitar. I'd probably be married with a bunch of kids and maybe I'd be happy. Probably not. I don't think I ever would have been happy in that world. But if you could comply or sort of let go of your individuality, or if your individuality fits that world, then, maybe it's not the worst way to live. Because, look at us outside here, being all anxious about the news cycle and being addicted or like distracted by social media and the internet making us anxious. Like there's no internet in that world. There's no social media. So there's a lot of beauty there. I try to like give a nuance. It's like, I don't like extreme religion. I left it very purposefully. And there's a lot of things I hope that they, improve on, but there's also a lot of beauty and wisdom there. And hopefully I've held on to some of that as well. I hope that wasn't too rambly.
No, that was great.
No,
I have
that was
about
good.
85,000 new questions now that you just told me all that. I feel
Sorry,
like this is another podcast though, so I'm going to hold on to those because I could explore your religion and like all of that.
Yeah, I'm an open book. It's all, it's all.
Well, we would be here all day because I find that fascinating. I watch all the like religious
Yeah, me
and cult
too.
documentaries and I'm just like fascinated by
Yeah, can I just say every single religious and cult documentary, and especially the ones that deal with Hasidic Judaism, my biggest pet peeve, and the thing that they all get wrong is they always describe, and maybe this isn't true with cults, but I'll just speak for, what I know, which is like Hasidic, ultra-Orthodox Judaism. Any like TV show or movie or documentary, they always describe them as a very cold, insulated people where the rules are so extreme and women are treated like garbage and men are made to feel ashamed of their sexuality. And there's truth there's truth to all of that. But they never also describe how warm and beautiful these communities are, how much they look after one another, how much there's like just this joy in life and this constant celebration in their faith and their community. And I think those nuances actually make it harder to leave these faiths when you're leaving a community that maybe they actually do love you, but you have ideological differences. Say you're a gay man and and they're not cool with that, which is awful and sad. But you're also leaving behind a culture that is, full of beauty and love. I think that the temptation is to paint all of these extreme religions as a very two-dimensional experience, but it's not. There's people there that are extremely open. Like on my way out, I would have debates with different rabbis that, were ultimately so loving and so cool with me and actually wanted me to like explore poetry and rock and roll music. And, and these were people that they used their religion, their Torah, their Bible, their studies. It actually made them really kind, generous people. And it was actually those people that helped me realize that it wasn't for me, because I was like, oh, even the people that I believe are doing it right, I still don't really see myself in that. So now I could really leave. But yeah, that's like such a pet peeve of mine. Anyway, let's move along. Sorry.
Well,
Yeah.
in
I'm
that,
glad you said that too.
because
It's almost like a breakup where you always hear about the bad things because
Yes.
the person's
exactly.
convincing
Right.
themselves that they can't ever go back, when
Exactly.
10 years later, they're like, actually, despite the
Yeah.
bad, there was all these wonderful things. And
Yeah, we had good times. They were actually full of love also. There was issues and we had to separate, but they're lovely. They were great. And, yeah, it's hard. I think a lot of people leave with a lot of like a tremendous amount of anger and resentment. Thankfully, I think I was able to work through that in my teenage angst and just listening to a lot of Guns N' Roses and playing electric guitar, wanting to sound like Slash. I think I
love
worked
that.
through a lot of that. And I don't know, I'm in a place where I just have so much love for the community, and they are beautiful people and very misunderstood. And that's okay. And then again, they have real issues and there's stuff that I would love to fix, especially when it comes to sexuality. But they're also like a wildly sweet, kind, misunderstood people. And I imagine that's true with many, most communities, most people that are, out there.
You mentioned, you didn't have television, you didn't have radio. Were you exposed to music at a young age? Was that around in the culture? And when did you start playing music?
No, music was like, so they have their own music, which is like anywhere from very, very old traditional, like European folk, like it almost sounds like, old gypsy folk songs. But yeah, they have their
Which
own
can be
music
cool.
and that's it. Yeah, no, it's great. There's beauty there, but you couldn't listen to the Beatles. I didn't know who the Beatles were. I didn't know
Wow.
anything. I didn't know. Yeah, I had no idea about anything. But I loved music. So inside of that world, you could listen to music and I was obsessed. It's funny, the only way to access music is to go to their religious book stores. And those stores had some CDs. And it was like, the early 2000s where you had those listening stations. So you'd go and you'd put it on and you could switch through the different CDs. And so they have their own like religious pop singers, not too unlike, Christian like religious worship music, but, super cheesy. They usually like glean something from the pop world a couple of decades too late. And, but there were some like super creative people there. And, I loved music. But I would try to like, if someone drove by listening to the radio, I would like just listen, and it was so mysterious to me. And when I was my first real exposure, like understanding music that we all take for granted now was I was like 10 years old. I was driving we were going to Matt Hofer Sawmill to pick up some lumber, and I was driving with my dad in his pickup truck, and he told me, he's like, I'm going to show you something. You can't tell anybody. This is like, you can't tell your mother, pretty much was what he was saying. And he pulled out, he's like, open up the glove compartment under all the phone books and the stuff. He's like, there's some CDs, pull one of those out. And I reach in and I pull out a CD and it says Bob Dylan. And I was like, oh, what is this? This looks different. That guy looks different. And he's like, put it in the CD player. And I put it in, and as times are changing, that record. And, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like weird and wonderful and strange and disturbing in some ways. It was so raw. I'd never experienced anything like it. And I didn't really understand the context, like the cultural context of what I was listening to. But I knew that I knew that I was hearing a voice of honesty that unlike anything I've ever heard. It was just true. I couldn't tell you why, but I felt it, and yeah, just became obsessed with Bob Dylan. And I thought he was just some weird guy that my dad listened to that, my mom wasn't supposed to know about. I had no idea he's this like one of the great songwriters of all time. Yeah, man, that was cool. And I'm grateful for my dad for, showing that to me. He's the best.
That's so cool. So do you still talk to your parents? Are they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky. Like they're super accepting and just super cool. Yeah.
And are they like supportive of your music career? Are they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad, my dad is, my mom is as well. She doesn't understand it, she just doesn't get it. And I'm sure she still prays that, I come back to the religion and do all that. But she is very, very supportive. She's been very sweet. And, they're an exception. Like they're such an exception in that world. Like, yeah, I know people that, their parents won't talk to them. and
Right.
they're,
That's
cut off
awesome.
from their family. And yeah, so I'm extremely lucky.
Super cool.
I'd say they're probably an exception in the mainstream world too,
Right?
Your kid's a musician, get out of here. You're disowning you.
My parents still don't know what I do. Like they have no clue. I try to
Exactly.
explain it. They like, yeah.
Don't, yeah, just do it. Yeah, that's great.
Shifting gears a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about like your creative practice, kind of like your creative world as far as like routines of like songwriting, recording, playing shows, kind of like how do you balance all the different elements of what it means to kind of have that artistic life?
Yeah, it's so fun because you start writing songs and then somebody, maybe tells you to perform or you feel an instinct to perform. And then recording comes into the picture, and it's fun because they're all such different art forms, and they're very different. They take very different skills, and I still feel like I'm getting good at a bunch of them. So it keeps it exciting. I wonder if if it was just one thing, if I'd get super bored. But yeah, I love, to me, it's always like writing songs. I love writing songs. That's the easiest part for me, is just because I'm very I just like writing songs, and I don't judge my songs as they come out. I just write them. And they don't have to be the best song I've ever written. They just, you're just trying to get something off your chest, something you're feeling, something in the air, something someone else is feeling. You're just trying to, get it out of you. So that's like the most fun and giving part of it. And then recording has taken years for me to just slowly figure out how to perform in the studio. And I'm still working at it, but I think, I realized pretty quickly that, recording was just going to making records was going to take a lot of work. And then slowly, I realized okay, I started thinking about it. Somebody told me to think about it as you're casting a movie. So think about the characters you want in the movie, and that's how you choose to play with different people, and try to just get the right vibe. And, recording live has become, obviously that's an easier way to keep the art intact and not lose it somewhere along the way. But Tom Waits said that, music, recording music is a torturous process, and songs don't want to be recorded. And, I think in a way that's true. You could sort of trick them, but it feels like you're hunting or trapping. You're trying to trick a song into becoming a record. But I'm pretty happy. I've been putting out music, and I'm putting out a record in a week or so, or maybe by the time this comes out, it'll be out. And that's 24 songs of just recorded it live to tape, and kept it super simple, super fun. Had some friends, all friends, play on it. And I think that was my first really keeping the joy of it intact. I don't know how much it comes across. I hope it comes across, but I'm constantly I'm constantly pumped about making the next record. It's so fun to just do that challenge. That's way harder for me than writing and stuff. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun that we get to do all the different parts. I'm grateful for it. I think it'd be boring otherwise.
We love the new album,
Yeah.
and I think that does definitely come across. It's dropping on May 31st, and it's called Most People Are Lonely.
Yeah, pretty proud of that title.
It
so
is
silly.
a
love
wonderful
that.
title, and it's so true. We could get super deep, and I could ask you why you think most people are lonely, but we won't. You put out quite a bit of music this year because you have this big double album coming out. You also dropped an EP earlier this year called Calicoon.
And it's cool. I had a feeling you might have recorded it live just from listening to it, because it's there's such a joy and a community feeling to it. But what's cool is it's also the birth of someone else's stuff as well, that they played on and they can kind of celebrate.
Yeah, the hardest thing about mixing for me is losing an individual take for the greater good of the song. Even just lowering the electric guitar or the pedal steel, because you're in the studio and then you isolate it and you're this is so cool. I could hear I could hear Jim kind of breathing as he's playing, and
Wow.
the movement of his foot, and it's so beautiful. And then you're yeah, but you can't just put that out. So you put it into the mix, and then everything becomes this one thing. But it's fun. By the way, my constant excuse for myself if I don't record a song to the best of like its potential, which a lot of times, especially, you know, on indie songwriter, no, you know, tiny budget, you're working on friends' time a lot. So you kind of go, you know, you could try to perfect it up until a point, but eventually you go, that's it. You know, we can't keep pushing. And as you put it out, and a lot of times that's actually better for the art. But other times you just go, we'll do a live version in 10 years. Then we'll get it. But, you know,
Right.
that's fine. That's the constant excuse for a lack of perfection.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes sometimes those little imperfections are actually, Jeremy Quentin said this about not hyping at all in any way something that I made, but he told me something about a record I made in like 2012, and he was like, there's these little imperfections that like they snap you back into remembering that like a human made it, you know.
Yeah.
And those kind of, he was like, which I'm like, damn it, that means I messed up a lot to if it did that. But it's so cool to like, especially in today's world of everything shifting less and less human, like to have those reminders like, oh yeah, like a human being.
Right. I think that's another podcast too, like AI and like the way music is going versus like having those imperfections that humans have.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like.
Me too. Nathan, what's that record called, by the way?
It's called Dishes.
Love it. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, Emily, I feel like all the smart people say to be worried about AI, but I'm not worried at all. Like I think the human brain is the human soul is just so complex, and I don't know, maybe AI will really get it. But you know, you hear jokes that AI writes and it's just like, that's not funny. It just doesn't work.
No, it's not. No. I one of my like side gigs is I edit this AI podcast, and
Wow.
it's like all these experts talking about AI, and so I know a lot more about it than I actually care to know. I won't probably leave that in because they'll fire me. But yeah, I'm not that worried about it either. Like it's like it's going to be helpful in a ton of ways and like
Good.
fix a lot of things. There is some weird stuff too, but I'm not worried about it for art and music as much.
That's refreshing. Good.
Yeah.
And I think there will eventually be a backlash where it's like, oh, that's so cool. It's doesn't sound like the AI bullshit.
That's what I was saying.
You know?
Like it's like there's probably going to be like a shift where we don't want the ultra processed music, you know? Like
that'll be my moment.
Yeah.
And like
and
selfishly,
that'll be my moment too. I want all of this music to like rise up, you know? I don't know.
Like selfishly for my own music, it's never quite fit in with like the mainstream, but then like as it shifts more and more towards that, it's like, well, not fitting in actually, maybe that'll be, you know, valued more in the future, you know, where before it was just like, that guy's weird.
Yes.
I love the humanity behind like just everything on that record. Like the production, it feels really simple, but then like it doesn't hold back at all. There's like, you know, organ, pedal steel, the drums are amazing, like mandolin, there's the string parts, there's like these gang vocals and the, you know, and it feels just so like optimistic, not jaded, kind of view of like life, death, love. Like I'm curious if that is like an intentional like statement to like take it all in and not worry, or if that's just more of like who you are. I don't know if that even makes sense as a question, but
no, I hope. Well, I mean, thank you. That's kind of you. I hope you're right. Like I like this group of songs. I feel like they're very innocent. Like they're not very cool. They're not very like clever. Like they're just kind of fun and innocent. And yeah, I think there's like this openness to like the great mystery of life and not taking it too seriously. I think singer-songwriter, like I've always been super wary of singer-songwriters. Just like I think our genre, you know, wherever it falls, folk, Americana, whatever, indie, folk, country. Yeah, you could kind of start taking yourself a little bit too seriously, and the performances become very, very dry, and they're like, yeah, we're just here to sing some sad songs, and I don't know, that becomes like silly to me a little bit. So hopefully, yeah, like there's a song on the record called Funny Boy that is the dumbest song I've ever written. Like the lyrics are literally, my shotgun goes boom, boom. My baby, she goes bang, bang. I saw you walking out the door. Grocery G's keep coming back for more. It's just the dumbest, like fast kind of skiffle tune, kind of like an Elvis-y, just fast, yeah, like an old time country tune. I don't know. It's just so much fun. And I so purposely put it, like left it on the record because it's just a dumb song that doesn't take itself seriously. It's so much fun live, like it's absolute blast. Like live, we'll use that as like the song to introduce the band with, and everyone takes a little solo. And
Awesome.
I don't know. I love the balance of that. And then like, yeah, I have a song on the record called Song to My Son. And it's about, I wrote it for a buddy who lost his son. And we were just hanging out once. We were sitting in this like basement bomb shelter. We were in a part of the world where there's bomb shelters. And and he told me this whole story about his son dying, and he left the room to like take a piss, and I wrote this song for him. I was very nervous to play it for him, but he ended up, he liked it. But like the audacity to have a song like that on a record, like I need to balance that out with like just a dumb song called Funny Boy. So yeah, I'm pumped about it. Like and thanks for saying those nice things.
Funny Boy is really fun. Oh. Yeah, and I mentioned I sent her some notes this morning of like, not like we have to hit on all these things, but just like if I don't write it down, I black out and forget anything I've ever thought, And one of the lines that really stuck out to me was from the song for my son. It said, "Where do people go when they pass away? I don't know, but I know that he's okay."
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that was from the dad. He was like, because when you meet someone who experienced, just such fucking tragedy, they carry a wisdom. It feels like they carry a wisdom that when you're just going about your normal day, you don't really have access to. And, he seemed to like have this deep faith and like understanding the circle of life that, most of us don't really have access to usually. So, yeah.
That is a beautiful line. And Nathan mentioned all the instruments and how awesome they sound on the record, which has a lot to do with that live feel, organ, pedal steel, drums, mandolin. Do you want to give a shout out to some of the players on the album, and how do you know them? And is it your regular band that you perform with, or just friends that came into the studio?
Oh my God. Yeah, I would love to. So I recorded this record in upstate New York, where I'm from. And the core of the record was like, my live band back in New York, like my New York live band. And then I had some like some older friends too. Like there's the guy who plays piano and organ on it. His name is Joel Diamond, and he's an old salty legend who his friends know him as the guy who walked out of the Rolling Stones Exile on Main Street sessions because some girl in New York was beckoning him. And he's lived his whole career like that. He's toured with everybody. He's toured with Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones and Eric Clapton. And, but he like doesn't care about any of those. And he makes, he talks a lot of smack. He's always been, he's like, if integrity was a person, was like a grouchy old man. He's a beautiful player and, has done his entire career just following following stuff that he likes. And I was lucky enough to trick him into hanging out in the studio for a bit. So he's on that. And then the drummer's name's Caleb Esty. He's my drummer back east, and he's just my favorite drummer in the world. I remember when I started playing with him, he plays so perfectly with my music, and I was like, how do you anticipate what I'm going to play? Like, how do you? Because I played with other drummers that were super talented, but there was always a little bit of cognitive dissonance between us. And he just looked at me. He's like, I watch your hand. He's like, I just watch your hand strumming. It was the simplest thing. He's like, I see how you're strumming, and I play like that. Wow. And it was so simple, but it was like such a brilliant lesson on how to play with other people. And he just locks in. He's such a brilliant drummer. He's all over the record. My old bass player, Joe Miller, the third, he was always destined to be like a prog rock, like brilliant metal band. Like my music was always way too dumb for him. But like he's on it. He just, he played so beautifully. And It's funny. My buddy Allison is on it, and she's a next door neighbor now, which is cool. But we recorded it back in New York.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's full of like just ghosts of like little moments and dear friends that I adore. And we recorded it like in just like a house. Just looked like a regular house. It's kind of like a fratty house. Bunch of the boys would always show up, and I always felt guilty that we were recording, and we'd take a break and some video game would like go open, and they were like my friend Keith Loria, who he recorded this album, and he converted his whole living room and dining room into his recording studio, and was obsessed with tape, and had this old beautiful Tascam 8-track recorder, and just had like the bravery to like really learn how to use it. And I got to do the whole thing to 1/2-inch tape. It was cool. I remember I put out my first record. It's called Apartment 16, and recorded it all like overdubs and digital. And I was hanging out with him at his house, and he was like, "Your new album." He's like, "I don't like it." And I'm like, "All right, what don't you like about it?" And he's like, "It just doesn't sound like you." And I was like, "You have a point. It was overdubbed. It was a little bit, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's a fun record, and I wouldn't change anything. I'm glad I have it." But he had a certain point, and so I was like, "All right, well, if you want, why don't you record me?" He's like, "I would love to." So yeah, and he did sign up. He signed up for like an EP, I think he was imagining we do a 5-song EP, and we did 24 songs. So
Wow.
we don't talk anymore, but no, we're good friends. He's a great guy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Super
Hey,
grateful.
sometimes that like blunt honesty can be a good thing,
Oh, it's great. I've gone it twice. I've gone it twice, or at least twice that I remember, because I knew they were right. I made a record up in upstate New York at the Outlier Inn, which is where Big Thief recorded Capacity. Beautiful
wow.
studio.
Yeah.
And my friend Josh, who runs that, he runs a studio on the farm that it's on. I was just starting to date my partner, and she. So we were together, and he summoned me to the farm, and he's like, he just gave me he like really criticized me, and he's like, and it wasn't personal. It was just like he's like, because I went in and I recorded. I made a record there, and he was like, "It doesn't sound like music." He's like, "The music isn't pulling me in," and he's like, "You're pushing too hard. The drums are too cheesy. This and that." He's like, "But most of all, it's not pulling me in," and it sucked. I remember I was so defensive, and I left, and Kate was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I was there to see that."
Wow.
But he was so right. And he was so correct, and it set me on this path of like, I want to get better at recording and figuring out like, what does it mean to like, and ultimately, I think that what I learned then was just to like let the music just be easier and simple, and stop pushing and just letting it breathe. And hopefully, I think I'm the wiser for it. And it was fun. I'm grateful. Other times I got in criticism that just didn't land. I was like, I think you're wrong, but
Right. Definitely. I think it depends who it's coming from. And, I try to, there's albums that like my friends will put out that I don't like as much as others or whatnot. I usually don't comment unless I'm like specifically asked, because I just feel like everyone has to like grow and figure things out on their own when it comes to music. So
yeah, mentorship, any form of like mentorship, or, I think it is healthy, and it's something I crave. It's something I think we all want.
That would be wild to hear that from. Was he the one who recorded that project as well? Like,
no, he's a different guy. I ended up. We haven't worked together since, but not just because like our schedules haven't. I'll work with him again someday.
Well, I mean, like, did he record your EP that he was also saying didn't sound?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, we went. He was expanding the studio, and he like got some investor and like built what was already a beautiful studio just into like state of the art. They got this massive board from like Columbia Studios, and so right after they set it up, they kind of used me and my band as a guinea pig. He's like, "I'll give you a couple of free days to record. You get to make a record, and we get to kind of like, work out all the kinks with our new gear." And at the time I was like, "Oh, this is a missed opportunity," because we didn't come out with anything good. But looking back, I was like, no, it took going in, recording like 12 songs, like recording a whole album, and then being told like, this isn't good enough. This isn't musical. Hey buddy, there's a cat on the screen. We all have a cat. we're all just like, yeah. So I'm super grateful. I still have those recordings, and they're bad. There's beauty, but they are bad. The songs are good. I'll make that record someday, but the performances are just awful. Like, I just didn't know what I was doing. And so it's fun, like, it's painful in the moment to learn a hard lesson. And then looking back, you're just like, that is the greatest, you're really grateful for that.
Yeah. And to be able to receive it, I think takes a certain amount of bravery too. Cause
I
like,
don't know how.
friends
Yeah.
will be like, oh, screw it. It's like our culture is very anti-negative feedback.
That's true.
Oh, they just don't get you. I remember when I was in college, there was this but there was this guy who I was going to record an EP with over like spring break or something. And then I sent him like the 5 songs. He's like, love them. These are amazing. And I was like, just to double check I'm not missing any that I should be recording. Here's like 100 songs that I wrote, in order of, I mailed it. I like sent it to him in the mail of like 5 like burned CDs or whatever. And then he was like, okay, man. He like called me. He's like, all right, man, here's the deal. The 5 that we were going to do, if those were the only 5 I heard of yours, they're really good. But hearing them in context, they are not as good as like the 2 most recent ones that you wrote. You've like turned a page and are at the beginning of a new, like the beginning of finding your voice. So if you focus on these other 5, you're going to focus too much on something that's not your voice. And all my friends were like, just find someone else. Well, I'm like, well, I need to, at least see if he's right, And then whenever it was that I put out my first record, those were the oldest 2. The 2 that he pointed out were the oldest 2 that like made the cut.
Wow. That's
and
so
there's a lot of wisdom to like, I don't know, just like having a community that's like aware of, not just everything you've ever released, but everything that you're kind of just like sort of your works in progress and sharing the stuff that, I don't know. There's some really cool lesson there that I'm not able to articulate.
No, I think you did articulate it. Yeah.
We've talked a lot
That's
about
beautiful.
recording in the studio, but I know that you also were just over in Europe. You got to play in Ireland. How often do you get to go overseas? Was that your first time? And is playing live something you're going to be doing a lot more this year following these albums? What's on the horizon with that?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, first time in Ireland. It was an absolute blast. The Irish people they're just so funny. They're so sweet. They're like super witty. Like, they're so good at, like ball busting. They're just like, it was just teasing, just getting teased. And oh my God. Yeah, I love playing live. Like, my dream now is to get a booking agent. That is genuinely my dream. Like, I've had so many managers over the years, and I've never had a booking agent. And I can manage my own little thing, but booking has always been like the hardest part of just like sending out cold emails and circling back and planning tours. But yeah, I'm going to tour as much as I can this year. As much as I'm able to like muster and figure out. I want to be on the road all the time. Because also, like, I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I love fly fishing and backpacking and stuff. So like, I mix all of that up into touring and, just seeing a new town. Like, we were talking about Jeremy, but, getting to go out to like Dubuque, Iowa. And I was there in the winter, and the Mississippi River was just covered in ice. And you show up in this town that you've never been to, and it's an overwhelming feeling of just being in a place that feels like it's been there for all eternity, but you weren't aware of it. And you meet some of the locals, and then, if you have a gig, you play songs, and you have this like kind of, semi-vulnerable, semi-intimate, fun experience with people. And some old lady comes over to you and tells you about her first love, in college, and how a song you wrote reminded her of it. It's like, it's the wildest. It can be the most like fun, strange experience. It's life on steroids. It's like it's life in a vacuum sometimes. Sometimes it's just awful and a bummer, and you bleed money and the gigs stink and you're playing no one and you feel like a fish tank. You ever see like, a lonely just fish in a restaurant where you're like, that fish deserves to not be there. Sometimes you feel like that. Those are some shows as well. But and sometimes those gigs pay the most. But I want to be on the road all the time this year. I'm going to do a little bit of like a Pacific Northwest tour, hopefully, and New England tour in the fall. Yeah, as much as I can play live, I want to do it. It's so fun, and you meet like the best people, and it teaches you a lot about yourself, and then it's nice to be home too. It's nice to come home and have. I love cooking. It's one of my favorite things after being on the road is just coming home and cooking my gal some dinner, and it's such a like it makes you appreciate that more too. And seeing the cat, I miss my cat a lot when I'm on the road. She doesn't think about me when I'm gone, but I think about her, and she's good. She's a good egg.
So speaking of, you said, touring, you get to meet a lot of people. How recently did you move to Nashville? It was pretty recently, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago. Yeah, I've been in
Okay.
Nashville like I think 2.5 years. Yeah, it's been fun.
I was gonna ask, one of the things I wrote down, part of it was because I saw a post my friend Stephanie posted, and it was like, I'm playing Tuesday with Shlomo Franklin at Urban Cowboy. I was like, oh my God, they know each other. This is so cool. And then I realized I was reading the post on like Friday after it already had happened, not Friday before the Tuesday, So I was like, damn it, you guys are already playing. But it kind of got me thinking, like, and then I've seen my buddy Carl has liked some of your posts, and I'm curious, like, who are some of your favorite like peers in Nashville?
You just mentioned two of like literally just knockout songwriters. So Carl Anderson, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Anderson is like
Carl.
I knew about Carl Anderson before I moved here. My buddy Mikey lived here. Mikey Barlavi lived here, and he was like, this is my favorite songwriter in Nashville. And I listened to one of his songs called "She Took Everything," and it's just one of these great songs that. And the kind of refrain or chorus is like, "What part of she took everything don't you understand?" And it's just this like brutalistic just song at somebody's just wit's end, and it's a song I've never heard before. It's just, it feels like, it feels like Willie Nelson should have written it. It's just a brilliant song. And so now to like move to Nashville, become friends with him, and, consider him a dear friend now. And, we're just hanging out and he's playing me new songs, and we're cooking each other dinner. It's such a dream. Like, it's so cool. And he just put out a song called Friend that is like, it's a brutally good song. It's about his losing his friend to suicide, and he's got a line in it goes something along the lines of some folks let it play, others skip to the end, and like seeing life as a song. He's such a brilliant poet. And then Stephanie Landberg, what's her last name?
Lambring. Yeah.
Lambring. I'd never, I hadn't come in contact with her or her work. Played with her the other night at Urban Cowboy and was just floored.
Mm-hmm.
She did a song called Fine that I would just love. I've been listening to. She did a song called Cover Girl that I want to cover it so bad. It's such a brilliant song. And she just blew me away. So I think I freaked her out because I was like, you were my favorite songwriter ever. I get a little annoying, I think, when I'm passionate, but oh my gosh, she is so good. What a talent. What a freaking talent.
She is so freaking good. I remember I met her in college, and it was like, how are we like the same age, but you're 50 times, I can't even imagine writing songs like that, and then, yeah, she's got such, you should have her on your podcast, and Emily, you should have her on as well. She's just so I think she got like a publishing deal kind of right out of college. I'm not trying to speak for her, but I kind of got the impression like she didn't love what she was having to write in those situations, and then quit, but became a bartender to be able to like sing the songs that she really wanted to sing. It just like, yeah,
That's
I
so
was
cool.
so pumped to see y'all both play until I realized that it was in the past.
Oh yeah, well, I would love to play with her again. She's amazing, and yeah, just like seems like a hard worker. And I feel like Emily, you probably feel this way too. It's like I've come to appreciate the hard work, and within reason. Like I don't want people to work themselves to the bone. And I think it's actually fun when some friends like be like, "I'm not working hard this year. I'm gonna just chill out and enjoy my life." That's beautiful too. But there's something about just the hard work of these people, the persistence, and then you mix that with like just some brilliant songwriting. That it gets me super excited. It gets me going. And
That's
yeah,
why
I
I've done
wish.
this for so long. It's like I don't listen to a ton of mainstream music. I do love Taylor Swift, but I kind of fell into this. I was always like reading Pitchfork, and those were like my famous people, were like the
Mhm.
people in Pitchfork. And
Yeah.
then I started like meeting them, and I'm like, oh, they're like barely scraping by. Like
Oh,
they are like they write the most incredible music, the most I would just assume like everybody's going to see them live and everybody's supporting them and buying their albums like I was. And that wasn't the case. Like they're all working like multiple jobs on top of doing their music. And I just got really passionate about like helping those artists and trying to like expand their reach.
no, it's beautiful. Yeah, I feel like and the other day I walked into Anaconda Vintage and like there's Aaron Ray just like organizing the dresses by color. And I'm like,
Right.
I watched your NPR Tiny Desk. Like
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
amazing. I'm starstruck right now.
Right.
And then and she's like, "Do you need anything?" And I'm like, and I didn't say anything because you want to just respect their privacy at
Right.
work. But I shouldn't say where she works, but she's there once in a while. Had a similar experience with like Caroline Spence, who's a brilliant singer songwriter.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy, and you just want. Oh man, I want every singer songwriter that's worth half their weight, just to be able to do it and
Right.
make.
I always say, like, at the end of my podcast, like, buy music, get out to a show, buy an album, buy some merch. Most of the artists that are doing this aren't doing it just like to be famous. They're doing it to make enough money to make their next album. So, like, help them do that kind of thing. And that's just how I feel. Like, I think that goes back to what you were saying at the beginning. Like, we need more music podcasts. We need more people using their tiny sphere of influence to like get music out there.
Oh yeah, I love it. It gets me. It gets me going. It's inspiring, and yeah.
For sure.
Something that I notice, like when I listen to your voice, is it feels super happy and super sad, like at the same exact time. And like, is that on purpose? Have you always, or is that just like that's just how your voice is? But it's almost like if Johnny Cash had a higher voice, is kind of like what I kept thinking.
I'll take it. Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to sing, at all. Yeah. So I can't, I have no idea. I have no control over my voice. I'm envious of like real singers, like the people we were just talking about. But yeah, I feel pretty happy and pretty sad. So like at the same time, I don't know. It's yeah, I love songs. Like I love sad songs make me super happy, like and just singing about any sort of like an old love or an old place and nostalgia. Like kind of nostalgia feels like that. Nostalgia feels kind of happy and sad at the same time. So yeah, that's sweet of you. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my voice. So thanks.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, when you said I'm jealous of real singers, I'm like, you're a real singer.
Oh, no.
You said like you don't know how to sing, which debatable. Maybe that means you haven't taken like singing lessons, but after you kind of removed yourself from religion, how did you like learn to play instruments and learn to like how did that start for you?
Yeah, well, because of like, because of hearing Bob Dylan, and then later on for a bunch of summers, I'd be working on the farm the whole time during the summer. And when I was about 10 or 11 years old, we got a big fancy new tractor that had like an enclosure. It's called a cab. And it came with a CD, like a CD player and a radio. So I'd be spending full days out in the field spreading cow manure and this is like my first like access to radio. So I listened to whatever was on the radio and was blown away by what I heard and discovered like the classic rock radio. And eventually like I was allowed to, my dad took me and bought me some Beatles CDs. I bought the White Album. I think that was like the first CD I ever bought. Then Eagles Greatest Hits Volume 2.
Nice.
And I just became like obsessed with the guitar. And it became like the soundtrack of rebellion, the soundtrack of freedom to me. It sounded like salvation. It sounded like real freedom to me. So yeah, I spent years just learning guitar, and I bought a Gibson Les Paul. I wanted to be Slash, to be honest. I just wanted to sound exactly like Slash. And then luckily I had a little bit of foresight to just want to sound like myself as well. And I became obsessed with guitar. And then I did some traveling when I was like 17, 18 years old, around the world a little bit. And I couldn't bring my electric. So I brought my Martin acoustic, and I had this Martin that my mom bought me at Sam Ash, which again was like such a nice thing that she did, that, it's probably difficult for her. It was, because I'm sure for her, guitar also represented like the outside world, rock and roll, and danger, and being lured away from this religion that they were so protective over, and this faith that they were so devout with. And but she like did this very generous thing and put me and my desires first above her belief system, and bought me this Martin acoustic. And so I brought that around and like just started writing little songs. And I forget what your question was, but yeah, just songs. They made me really happy. Like I loved writing songs. I really liked the idea that like a song has a little bit of power over you. Like you don't really control it. You could pretend that you're writing it, you're creating it, but really the good stuff just happens, and you just got to be there to write it down. So that was cool. Like I liked not having control and just having these songs like kind of be about whatever, and not really even knowing what they're about, but getting to sing them. And it was fun. And like, it was very healing for me. I was going through a lot and leaving this like crazy life behind and facing this outside world that I didn't really know how to maneuver. I didn't grow up with any like cultural references that everyone just takes for granted. Like I didn't know what the Simpsons were. I didn't, but at this point, like I had a little bit of, I knew the Beatles were, I knew who David Bowie was. The first time I heard any of these artists, it was like, oh, okay, the disc jockey just said that was a David Bowie. Cool. I'm going to write that down. I like that David Bowie. And I had no idea if he was a legend and old, if he's a new guy. Like is he dead for many years? What he looked like, I didn't even know. He was just a voice on the radio. And, so music, like, like for anyone else, it really like saved me and represented such like comfort and freedom. And it was a real path for me. It broke open the whole world for me. It was, pretty lucky, pretty cool.
I know you've released a couple singles off your new album. The title track from the album, Most People Are Lonely, and In Bed by Midnight. Are there other tracks you're like really excited to get out into the world that you want the listeners to particularly, I mean, we want them to listen to the whole album, but are there tracks that you're really excited to be out in the world?
Yeah, it's a long album. It's 24 songs. I don't expect people to dig into the whole thing, take off from work and listen to the whole thing.
They should wait up at midnight when it comes out, just like we do for Taylor Swift, and listen to every single track.
There'll be a couple of weirdos throughout the world doing that, but there's a song on there called Smoke Screen that I really like.
Yes.
There's a song, the song that closes the album is called Dance to the Beat of the Drum, and I like that song a lot. It's a fun, I don't know, and both those songs I just mentioned are like 6 minutes long, so I feel bad. There's a song on it called Getting Cold that I play piano on. I am awful at piano, but it's the one song I could half play. So that's fun. It sounds different. But then, like throughout recording, you become really endeared to like maybe the weakest song on the record or the one that doesn't fit in. And you start like almost identifying with that song a little bit. There's a song on it called Hold Me Down.
Yes, that's my favorite one.
Really? Oh my God. Yeah, it's like a dumb pop song, but I love it. Well, it's not dumb. I shouldn't crap on my own work.
No, but the instrumental is so cool. That like, is that mandolin or
Yes,
almost like the Celtic Nickel Creek kind of like cool. I don't know. That song was that one and Smoke Screen I wrote down. I was like, those were my two favorite ones. So both
That's
ones.
really kind of you to say.
I
thank
had
you.
those written down as well as favorites.
That means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Hold Me Down, like yeah, it kind of has like a bluegrassy Celtic riff with like, and then for the chorus, I was trying to get like I was like, I want it to sound like the Killers. We had a little bit of synth.
Yes.
It doesn't, but I wanted to have like that big soaring sound. And yeah, it's so fun. Like I love recording so much. So, and hopefully, there's nuggets and sounds on there that like I probably don't even notice or understand, that hopefully some, friends will enjoy. And the thing I'm most pumped for is like being able to play these songs out. And then if someone likes them, like being able to go back and they could, hear that song again. 'Cause I haven't had that till now. So yeah, thanks for listening to the songs. It means a lot.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
thanks for trusting us with them early. It's always like, don't send them to anyone else. Just,
Be like, I have some constructive criticism for you. Be like, let's go.
Yeah, don't release this album. Are you working on a new record at all? I saw some pictures of, looks like you
The man
like
just
that.
put out a double album, or he's about to put out a double album, and he just put out an EP, and you're like, give us more music.
Well, I saw like Aaron and Matt and Paul put out that record they did together. And then I saw you posted a picture in like one of the carousel posts that had Paul in it. So I was like, oh, maybe he's secretly working on the next one, or just friends with that guy.
Oh, I love Paul. I'm hopefully making a record with Paul. He's been like helping me with a record. Yeah. Yeah, I'm working on a bunch of albums because I'm bored, and that's like one of the only things that gives me joy. So yeah, I'm working on a few albums. Yeah, I like my favorite. Like, I don't know how people only work on one project. I like spreading things out and being able to jump from one thing to another. But yeah, I'm working on finishing like just like the final like backup vocals and stuff for a record called Flying Over Hollywood. That'll probably be my next record that I put out, and then I have another record called Two Ships Passing in the Night. That's the one Paul's helping me finish. He's playing bass on it. That one, just like the scratch tracks are done, but that's far from being done. So I'll work on that over the next couple of years, and then I have a record called Behind City Lights, and that one I'm also just like doing some backup vocals for, just the final stuff. So I'll get that mixed this year. And then I have a record called Yankee Appalachian. It's a dumb title, but I like it. I'm recording that like in a couple of weeks in New York with a friend out in Rockaway, Queens. So I'm pumped about that. Yeah,
That's a lot.
That's amazing to have that many going at one time too.
It's fun. I like working like that. I feel like I think for a lot of artists, like their intellect and kind of neuroticism is actually really good for their work, and you get these beautiful carved things. But I'm not a fan of my intellect. Like it makes me not like anything I do if I overthink something, or just overthink it, overdo it, try to make it perfect. So if I work on a bunch of stuff, I get to like not really focus on anything and keep it just like super fun, spontaneous. And then, you could overthink and mixing and stuff, but I like working on a lot of projects. It just, it gets me inspired. And like, you make a record with a friend, they're only able to like do it. They're only able to work with you once every 2 months anyway. Cause I'm not showing up with a big budget and being like, let's make this now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, if you ever have free time in the next 3 months, hit me up and let's make something together. So, so I just like working. I like recording. I'm so pumped. I hope, you hope that the people you like find an audience. I hope that the songs I put out find a little bit of an audience that will enjoy them. That's like, that's the prayer. It's like, hopefully an audience shows up and will appreciate these songs for what they are. And if not, maybe the next record or the one after that. We'll keep trying.
I love that approach to just kind of get it all going, because I talk to a lot of artists that'll be like, oh, I've written all this and I've written all this and I've written all this, but I need to get in and record it and I don't know what to do. Just do it. Like what you're saying, like I've got it all going. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you got to just do it and figure it out later. Yeah, it's hard though. I get it. It's so hard. Right. And, if either you're doing it and you're paying a lot of money or you're taking favors, which is just, that's hard too. And yeah, so I empathize with all of our musician friends that, it's a weird struggle. It's not the hardest thing in the world. Just being a mom is way harder than being a musician. Being most things is way harder, but it's got its own challenges, and I empathize.
For sure. So if the listeners want to check you out online, where are you most active? Instagram, TikTok, Twitter? And I saw your website. You do have a website up, so people can go check that out. Where's the best place to find you online?
Yeah, you can reach out on Instagram, or I like YouTube. Yeah, Spotify, and just reach out. I think my email's on my website. If anybody wants to send me a very long email, they can. Yeah, I don't have Twitter, I don't think, and I'm very bad at TikTok, and I don't really know how it works, and I'm a little bit frightened by it. So
I'm figuring it out
yeah,
right now.
good for you. Good for you. Thanks so much for doing this. Thanks for
you're
indulging
so
me and letting
welcome.
me talk about my work a little bit.
Oh, thanks for
Well,
being down to talk. Yeah.
Nathan and I started a new thing on the last podcast we did together, where if you want to come back on the show, you can, but we have to assign you a song to write. And then when you come back, or a topic, and you have to write the song. And then next time you come back on the show, you have to play the song that you wrote for us. The topic I decided as we've gone through this, Nathan, was cats, because we all talked about cats and we all have cats.
Yeah.
So you have to write a song about cats, and then you can come back on the show again.
Okay, I'll do it right now.
And then you have to perform it for us when you come back on.
All right.
I love it.
Fair enough.
I think you see why I'm so excited about Shlomo and his music and his history and what's to come for this talented artist. Some of you may not have even listened to his music yet, and I guarantee you're going to be blown away. His music is just as amazing as he is. I'm so excited to have him come play the Alt Country Showcase this year. And as you heard, he's got to come back on the show and play a little song for us. That's just a little fun thing Nathan and I came up with to invite artists back and get the creative juices flowing. Excited to see what he comes up with. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us today. Once again, please subscribe to the podcast, find us on social media, and if you get a chance, rate and review the show. You can rate it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and also leave a review on Apple Podcasts as well. It would mean so much to me. Thank you again, and don't forget to hit up our archives. We've got great interviews recently with Nikki Diamonds, Jenny Don't and the Spurs, and more. For those of you missing out on our playlists, I do have an Alt Country Show playlist now on Spotify and Tidal. I will be updating those weekly, and I'm working on getting some really cool playlists together for YouTube as well, and possibly getting those playlist episodes similar to the old Music Plus Talk going on YouTube. So hit us up there, and I'll see you back here next time for the Alt Country Show.